Hey guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing another recent reads, and unfortunately a lot of the books that I'm going to be talking about I was really disappointed in. I picked up some books, some really popular books based off of some reviews from people that I really trust who said they love these books, but unfortunately they did not work for me. So I do have a couple of DNFs, I do have a few 2-star reads, and then I do fortunately have one 5-star read that I've talked about several times, so I'm pretty sure you guys already know which book I'm going to be talking about there. But the rest of these, well, not all of them, a majority of these I just did not enjoy. So we are going to go ahead and start with my DNFs. So the first book that I sadly had to DNF is The Republic of Thieves by Scott Lynch. This is the third book in the Gentleman Bastard series, and it is adult fantasy. So I picked this up. I did a buddy read with Tori over at Tori Morrow. She primarily talks about sci-fi and fantasy books. I get a lot of my recommendations from her channel. So if you guys have not checked her out, I will leave her channel below so that you can go and show her channel some love. But we have been reading every book together. And so this year it was time to read this one. And unfortunately, I did not like it. The main premise of this series is we're just following a group of characters, and they are part of the Gentleman Bastards, and they go on like these different schemes and these different heists, and they trick people out of their money and whatnot, and they're just a really fun time. In this one specifically, we're following our two main characters, Locke and Jean, and they are on yet another scheme that they are technically being forced into, where they have to try and rig this election. I tried so hard to get through this. I was really excited to jump into this one because we are introduced to a character that has been mentioned in the last two books. So I was so excited to finally get a chance to meet this character. Unfortunately, this character that we finally got to meet, I did not care for them. I felt like they were super unlikable, which contributed to making this book disappointing. But also, I just felt like this book was really slow. It was really boring. It felt really repetitive. In these books, they do like a past and present timeline. I'm usually more invested in the past because it's when our characters are younger and they're learning how to trick people and they're learning how to scheme. And at the beginning of this, I was really enjoying it because we got to see some other characters that we haven't really seen since book one. So I was really invested. But then, like I said, after a while, it just really felt like it was dragging, and I wasn't really interested in these schemes that they were doing anyways. So I got 520 pages into this book before I decided that I just could not finish it. And it's just so disappointing because the series has kind of gone downhill for me with each book. The first book, I gave 5 stars. I absolutely love the characters, and don't get me wrong, I still like the characters. But in book 2, I felt like the pacing was also kind of like all over the place, and I did not like the heist or the schemes that they were doing in that one. And in this one, I felt the same. The pacing was just really slow for me after about halfway through, and I didn't like where the story was going, and it really pains me that I did not like the character I was looking so forward to seeing. So unfortunately, I had to DNF this one. The last book that I unfortunately had to DNF is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So this is a adult fantasy romance, and I was so excited for this one because I have seen nothing but positive reviews for this. Every once in a while, I might see like a negative review here or there, but overall, this seems like people have been loving it. And what really convinced me to pick this one up is that people who I follow who don't typically read fantasy, let alone fantasy romance, really enjoyed this one. So I was like, if they liked it, then I know that I'm gonna like it, and that was not the case. So in this one, we're following our main character, Saris. She's a thief, but she also has like these hidden powers that no one else knows that she has. So because she's a thief, one day she gets caught. The queen puts her in jail. There's this whole situation where she picks up this sword and she tries to attack a guard, and then the sword turns to liquid, and then she's like transported into this fae realm, and then she meets a whole bunch of fae, and then she makes this deal where she has to make these relics so that the people in the fae world, well, the army in the fae world, can use these relics and use the Quicksilver, I guess. in an upcoming war that's coming. There's a lot going on, but I put this down because I was bored to tears. I got 250 pages in. I did not care about any of these characters like I wanted to. I did not really care about the world. I love a good faith story, but for some reason, I just was not connecting with this. At a certain point, it just really started to feel repetitive, and that was 250 pages in. It was like this, we weren't doing anything. They just kept talking about her trying to make these relics. There's a romance that's supposed to happen between our main character, Ceres, and Kingfisher, who I'm assuming is who this person is. And I didn't really feel it. I didn't feel the tension. I just could not get on board with this one. And the only reason why I continue to read it is because people have said that the second half of the book gets better. Some people have even specifically said by the time they got to page 200, the story got better. I got to page 250. It was not getting better for me, so I decided to put this down. So moving on to my 2-star reads, I have 3 of them. And the first one is Outdrawn by Deanna Gray. So this is an adult romance. This is not a book that I would have typically been drawn to, but I picked this one up because it was a part of a book club that I am a part of. So I went ahead and actually listened to this one. So in this, we're following 2 main characters. So we have Sage and Noah. They used to go to college together and they were kind of rivals. They're both artists and they work on like comic strips. So one day Noah actually gets a job at Sage's workplace and there's like a lot of tension. They end up in this like competition and then the story just moves from there. I mentioned that I listened to this book and it was not a great experience. If I would have had a physical copy, I probably would have switched to the physical copy. I could not, so I forced myself to listen to this. I don't say this often, and I listen to a ton of audiobooks. This was by far probably the worst audiobook I have ever listened to. One of the narrators was absolutely horrible. I hate to say that, but all the people that were in our book club, we all said the same thing because we all tried to listen to it on audio. The narration, I want to say it was the person that did it for Sage, because when they were reading Sage's part, it was fine. But anytime they tried to then like narrate Noah's character, their voice changed, which I get it. They were trying to make a distinction between both of the characters, but it sounded so off. I cannot tell you how much I did not like this audiobook. Outside of the audiobook, I just wasn't connecting with the characters. They were supposed to be in their late 20s, but they sounded like they read like they were much younger, maybe in their early 20s. I also didn't really get the enemies to lovers vibe that we were supposed to. Enemies to lovers is such a hard one for me because I want these characters to be enemies for a while, and it always seems like they may have an argument or two and then all of a sudden they're like smitten with each other, and that is exactly what happened in this one. And then the spicy scenes were kind of off in like their conversation. I don't know. This one, it also just did not connect with me in the way that I wanted it to. And it sounded like a cute premise, but I don't know. I didn't like the characters. They both have personal issues. I think Sage was the one that was having problems with her family because they depended on her a lot. So she always had this role of trying to take care of everybody, and she was like trying to step back and let them take care of themselves, but that wasn't really working. And then Noah, she's working herself too hard, so she is dealing with like carpal tunnel, and then she's also has a family who isn't really supportive of her career because they don't really think it's a real career. So they both had personal issues, but they were like issues that I honestly, I hate to say it, I didn't care about. So for this one, it really did not work for me. If this is a book that you have on your radar or a book that you are interested in, do yourself a favor and just please read it physically. I think if you try to listen to it, you're not gonna like it. I just have not heard any good things about this audiobook. But yeah, this one I gave 2 stars. Another 2-star read and another popular book that I was looking so forward to is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I think this is young adult romantasy. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But in this one, we are following, I forget her name, Peyton. In this one, we're following Peyton. And Peyton lives in a world where there's like two groups of people. You have the elites and then you have ordinaries. Apparently, there was like this plague that came through and it affected people, and some people got powers and some people don't. If you have powers, you are considered an elite. You are considered part of like the high class. If you are an ordinary, you are low class. And in this society, they are trying to eliminate all of the ordinaries. Of course, our main character, Peyton, she is an ordinary, but she pretends that she has the power of being a psychic, and she does it pretty well. In this world, they also have these trials, and in these trials, they pick elites who go in and they use their powers, and whoever wins gets some money. And somehow, some way, Peyton gets invited to these trials, and now she has to use this power that she really doesn't have to survive. For this book too, I don't know what it is about the characters. I don't know if it's just because it's young adult. Usually that doesn't have I don't really have a problem with that, but I wasn't connecting with Peyton, and I forgot the guy's name. I don't remember much from this, apparently. Kai? I wasn't really into their like budding romance. I wasn't really that interested in the trials. This is compared a lot to Hunger Games, and that is a tough one for me because I love Hunger Games, and I feel like if you are comparing your book to the Hunger Games, you have a lot to live up to because it's so much more than just the trials. And I think because any book that has trials in it, they compare it to Hunger Games, and I don't really think that that's necessarily a fair comparison, and that's how I felt with this one. Also, this book reminded me of another book. If you guys remember way back when, Marie Lu came out with a book that was called, or a series, the first book in that series was called The Young Elites. In that book, there was a plague that came through, and people that survived had like silver hair, and I'm pretty sure they had powers. I didn't mention this before, but that actually happened in this one too. Peyton has silver hair. The whole entire time I was reading this one, I was thinking about Young Elites. I feel like this book was not only compared to Hunger Games, it was compared to something else as well. But Young Elites is what I really think this book is compared to. It's just so similar. So if you've read Powerless and you've read Young Elites, please let me know what you think. But yeah, I didn't really care about anything that was happening. This book just kind of follows the same formula that every other book that has trials does. I think the only thing that's going to win me over with these type of books is if I connect with the characters. And unfortunately, I did not connect with the characters. I thought maybe for just a second I was going to try and pick up the next book in the series, but I heard a lot of mixed reviews for that, so I decided that I'm just gonna stop here. Again, I gave this one 2 stars. So my last 2-star read that I have here is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. So this is a adult psychological mystery with a little bit of thriller in there as well. I was planning on reading this one a little bit later in the summer, but I decided to pick it up now because Ruth Ware's book that's coming out later in the summer actually revolves around the same character that's in this one. So I decided to go ahead and read this now so that I can be prepared for that new book. However, with this 2-star rating, I did not like this. So in this one, we're following Lo. She's like a travel writer, travel blogger, something like that. And she gets a press pass on this really nice, fancy cruise. And on the first night, you know, she's meeting all of the other people that are there to kind of check out this cruise. And she ends up meeting this woman that's in the cabin right next to her. So on the first night, I'm pretty sure it's like the first night, Lo hears a scream, and then she hears something fall into the water, which she assumes is the woman. She alerts the security. They try to go over there and check it out, and they tell Lo, like, there's nobody in this room. The person that's supposed to be here, they ended up not coming. The room is like cleaned out as if nobody ever stayed there. And so Lo is basically trying to figure out whether or not there really was a woman in cabin 10. I thought this book was kind of slow. It felt like really repetitive. I didn't really connect with Lo as a character. I thought the best part of this book was the beginning when Lo and her boyfriend were arguing. There's a scene in there that I thought was kind of funny. I think I was more entertained by that than anything else that was going on in this story. I didn't really care about any of the side characters. I will say the one thing that I really did like about this book was just the setting that is set on a cruise ship. That was why I was trying to wait until later in the year to read it, because I'm going on a cruise and I was like, this would be a perfect time to read this. I'm glad I did not wait to do that, because I would have been severely disappointed if I chose this book to read on my vacation. Yeah, this one just did not work for me. And out of the books that I have read from Ruth Ware, I have read all of her books starting from one by one moving forward. So I was trying to read some of the books from her backlist. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue to do that. I also am not sure if I'm going to pick up the next book in this series. I don't know what we're really calling this, because I just wasn't interested in Lo as a character. So I'm not really sure I want to read another book that features Lo as the main character. Now, if her new book gets really great reviews and I start to see a lot of people really raving about it, then I might consider trying to pick it up. But as of right now, I think I'm gonna stop at this one. So then moving on to my 3-star reads, the first one I have here, which is a slight disappointment for me, is The Poppy Fields by Nikki Erlich. I actually got an arc of this, so I read it through NetGalley, but this is, I would say, more of a adult fiction. So in this book, there is this experimental treatment that has become really popular. And it is a treatment facility that puts these people to sleep for a long time in the poppy fields, where they can try and get over their grief. So these people are coming there because they're grieving for one reason or another. They're put to sleep for a few weeks. When they wake up, they are supposed to no longer be living in that grief. However, with any experimental treatment, we all know there are side effects, and there are side effects that some of these people do experience. The main point of this story is we're following, I think it's like 3 main characters, and they're all trying to get to the poppy fields for one reason or another. Throughout the story, we're slowly getting their backstory and what is actually bringing them to the poppy fields. They all get stranded at the airport, so they end up hitching a ride and driving to the poppy fields. And that's when they're kind of getting to know each other, and they're all getting to know each other's backstory. Along the way, they pick up this random girl who's not going to the poppy fields, but she's like this 18-year-old hitchhiker, I guess, that's just trying to figure out her life. They pick her up and take her along as well. So that's basically what the story is, them trying to make their way to the poppy fields and us just learning like their backstory. I really enjoyed Nikki Erlich's first book. Well, I don't know if it's her first book, but her book, The Measure. I absolutely love that story. I felt like it was really, probably wasn't the most unique, but I just really connected with that story. This one, however, something about it I just did not connect with. I wasn't connecting with any of the main characters and their personal stories. I can see so many people really enjoying this one. I think this will connect with a lot of people, but for some reason, it just did not connect with me. Outside of that, I really liked the idea of the poppy fields. I did like how these personal stories were interwoven into the story. It is a slower moving story, so don't expect the pacing to be fast. But I mean, listening to the premise, I don't think anybody would think that this is like a fast-paced story. But outside of just the general idea of the story, I really wish that I would have connected with the characters more. And I think had I connected with them more, I probably would have rated this one a little bit higher. Another 3-star read we have here is The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson. This is a debut romantasy. It's the first book in a new trilogy. And this one, we follow our main character, Vasa. She has recently lost her mother, and obviously she's grieving from that. And I think her father is no longer living either. So it's just her and her brother. Her brother is a douchebag, and he marries her off to this other king for this like political scheme. The guy that she ends up married to, Reed, can very clearly see that she is not wanting to marry him, but he kind of makes a deal with her that if she stays married to him for a certain amount of time and help him win this election that he's a part of, then he will divorce her and let her go do her thing. But of course, throughout the story, they start off enemies to lovers. It's like a fake marriage type of thing. And then over the story, they start to develop feelings for each other, and then it just goes off from there. The one thing that I really liked about this book is the magic, because we find out that Vasa is actually a witch. And I love the parts where she was learning to use her magic and she is introduced to like this witch coven, and I like some of the characters that are involved with that. I actually did kind of like Reed and Vasa's relationship, but again, the whole enemies to lovers, it just didn't really work for me because it didn't last that long. She was a little bit angry with him in the beginning, but her anger quickly dissipated very early on in the story. But I also really enjoyed the political intrigue in this. Overall, I thought this was fine. I liked the characters well enough. I did enjoy their romance. Like I said, I enjoy the political intrigue. So once the next book comes out, I am interested in picking that one up. So then next up, we have The Red Palace by June Her. I really think this is young adult. So I'm gonna say this is a young adult, a historical mystery. So in this, it takes place in like 1758, I think, in Korea. And we're following this nurse. And this nurse works with a lot of other nurses in the palace. And it's a job that a lot of people want, but you also have to really watch your back because you're learning a lot of things about the palace. And of course, they want to keep all their secrets contained into the palace. So there has been a massacre of like 4 nurses. And our main character, she ends up teaming up with this young inspector, and they are trying to figure out who massacred these nurses, and they think that the prince may or may not be involved, and the story just kind of goes off from there. I really honestly do not have much to say about this. I thought it was fine. Even though this takes place in like 1758, I would not have known that. There was no indication to me that this is like a historical story. I would not have known one way or another, and I wish that maybe I would have felt more of the historical feel, but it also could be that I'm just not really familiar with the culture, which was one thing that I did like because it did talk a lot about their culture, and I liked how it was like interwoven into the story. The overall mystery I thought was fine. I will say the end, I wasn't expecting it, but it also wasn't anything that surprised me. So I just felt very meh about this. I thought it was fine, and I would try something else from this author. The last 3-star read that I have here is Cutting Teeth by Chandler Baker. So I would consider this a adult fiction with like some horror elements. So in this, we're following these 3 mothers, and they all have preschoolers that go to this private preschool. Something happens in this classroom where several of these preschoolers all of a sudden start to crave blood. Like literally, like they're little vampires. They like to go out and like bite you and suck your blood. Like all of a sudden, this is what's happening. One day, their preschool teacher is found murdered in their classroom, and now they're trying to figure out, was it the kids? Was it these mothers? Who murdered this preschool teacher? I really liked the idea of this and the children being like little vampires. But outside of that, and outside the mystery of this teacher that was found murdered, this book is really about motherhood. It's about mothers and the sacrifices that they make for their children, whether some of these mothers are doing it alone, some of them have partners that are not very supportive, how they sacrifice a lot of their wants and needs for their children, literally letting these children suck them dry. And if you are interested in a story that's focused on motherhood, I would highly suggest picking this up because I thought it was very interesting. However, I do feel like the messaging around motherhood in this book was very heavy-handed. You could tell right away that that was the intention of the author. I did like it. I did like the metaphor that it was playing with, but I like my messaging to be a little bit more subtle than what we got in this one. I don't like to feel like I'm being hit over the head with what you're trying to tell me, and I kind of felt like that in this story. Also, I really wanted the mystery to be a bigger part of the story, or just like a better balance between the two, because the first half, she was really hitting it home with the whole metaphor and the motherhood situation. But then in the second half, then all of a sudden we start talking about this mystery, and at a certain point it's like, well, do I even really care at this point? I don't know. And I wasn't really that satisfied with the conclusion, because I feel like I still had so many questions in terms of what actually was going on with these children. But overall, I did have a fun time. I was not expecting this story to go where it went. And I have read another book by Chandler Baker, The Husbands, which I also enjoyed. So even though I gave this one 3 stars, I'm definitely interested to pick up more from the author. The next 2 books that I have here are my 4-star reads, and both of these I thought were really fun. So the first one we have here is The Psychopath Next Door by Mark Edwards. The title alone captivated me because I love to read any book about a psychopath. So this is an adult thriller, and in this one, we're following this family who just recently moved, and they moved because the parents were having some trouble in their marriage, and they thought moving would help them kind of get their marriage back on track. The father, Ethan, he ends up meeting their next door neighbor, Fiona. And Fiona takes a liking to their young preteen daughter, Rose. And throughout the story, Fiona and Rose are getting closer. Other people in the neighborhood are starting to think something's a little off with Fiona. And slowly, we are starting to learn about Fiona's backstory and how she got there and why she is so attached to Rose. And the story is just wild. I don't want to say too much more than that to spoil anything. I think in this one, you just kind of have to go into a blind and just sit back and enjoy the ride. I really enjoyed the characters. I actually thought Fiona was a really interesting character, and I liked her backstory. I thought Rose, their preteen, was a really interesting character, and to see her, how she starts off in the book in the beginning and where the book ends, I think you will be surprised. And I thought this was really fast paced. I was interested in the story from start to finish, and I was just really entertained. I had a really fun time with this one, and I will definitely be picking up more from Mark Edwards. The other 4-star read that I have is one that is a huge surprise to me, and that is Close Your Eyes and Count to 10 by Lisa Unger. This is also an adult thriller. Now, I want to say this was a surprise for me because last year, her book, The Couple in 3B, or I think that's what it was called, The Couple in 3B, I actually DNF'd that. So I was really hesitant to pick this one up, and I started seeing some not so positive reviews about this one, so I was even more hesitant to pick this up, but I decided to listen to it, and I was pleasantly surprised. So the main point of this story is we're following this really popular content creator, and he works for like this extreme sports group, and they put on these extreme sports, and one of them is this like extreme hide and seek game where they go to different locations. They bring in a lot of these other content creators, and they kind of like put them in this area, and they tell them to hide, and then they go find them, like hide and seek. So that's the main point. But then we're following this mother, Adele, and she's struggling with her kids right now because her husband is currently on the run for fraud, and she doesn't know where he is, and the police are constantly asking them like, where is your father? And they're like, I don't know. Well, because of his situation, she is now struggling financially. She is a popular content creator herself. I think it's like health and wellness, but she also needs a little bit more money. So her son suggests that she actually goes and be a part of this game because she might actually win. So she's hesitant about it, as one would be, but she decides to go participate in this game. So as a reader, we're just following like the behind the scenes that's going on with this game, as well as watching Adele and other contestants participate in this game. This is not what I think you would expect it to be. It's about the hide and seek game, but not really. It's really more focused on the behind the scenes and what's going on with the people who created this game, because we're following the creator. I think his name is Maverick. So we're following him, like some of his business partners, his girlfriend, and we're learning that some things are going on behind the scenes. And we learn that in a previous hide and seek game, a girl went missing. And so now somebody has been harassing Maverick and trying to also warn off other contestants from joining this game. So there's a lot of stuff in the background that's going on, and I loved it. It was so messy. It was so much going on, and I quite enjoyed it. Now, if you are looking for this to be primarily about the hide and seek game, that's not what you're gonna get. Throughout the story, you're getting some sections of the people in the game, but then towards the end, it all kind of comes together where you're getting the actual game in real time and this whole behind the scenes catastrophe kind of like meeting all at one point. For whatever reason, this one just really worked for me. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed where this ended up. And the only thing that stopped it from being a 5-star for me is that I do myself wish that it focused a little bit more on the games, but I literally enjoyed everything else. If you're hesitant to pick this up, I think you have to change your expectations on what you think this is versus what you're gonna get. But I would say check it out if you are interested. The last book that we have here, and this is no shock to anyone, this is my 5-star read. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this because I've already talked about it. I have a dedicated review for it. I talked about it in my best and worst books of the year so far tag video. So I'll have both of those linked down below in case you guys are interested. But this is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby, an adult crime thriller. Absolutely love this, but that is no surprise to anybody. So in this one, we're just following this family. Primarily, we're following the older brother, Roman, who is asked to come back home because his father was in a bad accident and is in a coma. So he is trying to help his younger brother and his sister help take care of the family business, which is running a crematory. When he gets home, he learns that his brother Dante has gotten into some serious trouble with some drug dealers, and now Roman has to figure out what to do. This is a really fast paced. I really like the family dynamics. I like the action that we got. I like where the story went in the end. The last 30 pages, I literally could not put down. Everybody that I have recommended this book to and they have read it has said that they really enjoyed it. So if you have not read this book yet, I suggest you do. You will not be disappointed. But again, I'm not gonna gush too much about this book because I've done that enough already, but I absolutely love this. Highly recommend. So those are all of the books that I have to talk about. Please let me know if you have read any of these and leave your thoughts down below, but I will see you guys next time. Bye.